What is going on, Breakthrough Success listeners? Marc, the podcasting coach here, and we got something for the hip hop community. We have a guest who is known as the Marine Rapper. I think you guys are going to really love his story. He is, as I mentioned already, U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran. He's into hip hopping. He served as a combat correspondent with infantry battalions during his deployment to Iraq and then Afghanistan. And he has performed and hosted numerous live shows from Los Angeles to San Diego County. Our guest who joins us is known as the Marine Rapper. He's also known as Raymond Lott. Raymond, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that. That was an awesome intro. Appreciate that, Marc.
Raymond, I'm so happy to have you on Breakthrough Success. And I just love hearing stories because my grandpa served in the Navy. So I love hearing
awesome.
stories about people who, they serve for their country and they come out of that. And the thing about Raymond, because we met at New Media Summit, he's got a really good sense of humor because like some people who they go through that and they are like, humor is not a thing for them. So can we just start off by obviously thank you for your service, but can we talk about how you didn't let what you saw on the battlefield impact life at home when you came back?
Thank you for thanking me for my service, and I'll answer that question. Yeah, my mentality has always been make something out of nothing. So it spawns from my upbringing with my mom. We grew up humble beginnings. My mom was a single mother and, eventually had 5 children, but we didn't really have a lot of things. So it was like, you had to be creative and you had to be like, okay, what do we have? We may not have lights, but we have water. We have running water. So it's kind of like that kind of mentality. So what I did was I've always applied that mentality to everything I do, even the military. A lot of people might, think that military guys are a monolith and they're just all serious and they can't find the humor in things. Me, I'm an individual like, hey, like it was a surreal situation. Unfortunately, people died around me and stuff like that. But I'm like, I'm living today to tell their story. So I'm going to be excited about it. I'm going to put some humor in it. I'm going to be able to be that kind of like voice for those individuals who can't be the voice. So I need to bring that liveliness and brightness to a situation. So I owe them that humor. I owe them that brightness. I owe them that legacy that I'm exerting through my story. So I feel like it's my duty on top of everything. And you don't have to take everything so seriously. Life is fun.
Yeah, there's this great mix of don't take things so seriously, but this is my duty. And that's not a contradiction because, you could feel a calling, like a strong sense of I have to do this, like in Raymond's case, retelling those stories. But you don't have to let your mission drive you to the ground, which I feel like is something people don't think of, but that happens. So we could have a really big mission, something we really enjoy, but how do we continue to have that enjoyment, continue to grind, but not if we're not moving fast enough, feel like it's driving us to the ground from a confidence standpoint in other areas as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You just kind of have to live in the present. You have to just be like, hey, what's happening right now? And I kind of, it was coupled with my family upbringing, but then also as I became a father, I was just like, I was so blinded by mission, or music. I'm not enjoying this blessing that I have in front of me. So sometimes you have to be like, oh, I was able to have a kid, a daughter right here who's in front of me. I need to enjoy the present. Because unfortunately in the past, being in the Marine Corps and the op tempo and stuff like that, things would pass by so quick. And I'm like, oh man, I might have been present in the moment, at a certain event, whether it's a family event or something, but my mind was on the battlefield. My mind was on a duty thing. My mind was on something that I thought was more important, than the moment. And in actuality, nothing's really more important than the moment. So when you get down to business and things like that, the customer stays with the individual who's running the business because they feel like that individual is, or that entity or that company is treating them like they're the only thing that matters in the moment. So it applies to business as well. So I realized that all aspects of my life depended on me actually taking things in the moment and not being so worried about the past or the future.
And that's a really great insight because I do feel like so many people are content, get clients, get clients, get clients, and they do miss the important big picture stuff. I mean, like Raymond's like being able to realize, oh, I have a child, and like, you know, like being able to focus on the beauty of that moment, because I feel like there are some things that we could take for granted too often. And it's when we focus too much on our work and what we don't have that we forget about what we do have. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways. In some cases, like, you know, people change a lot when they have their first kid. That's just the way I speak from no experience in that regard, but I just know it based on enough books that I've read.
Yeah.
But people do have that type of change, and it's going to be different for different people. But now Raymond's been able to, you know, he's still on his duty. He's still really embraced with his mission, but he's not letting it uh, tear apart at him if he doesn't feel like he's moving fast enough. Now, I am curious, how did you go from Marine Corps to the Marine rapper?
Yeah. They're kind of polar opposites because if you know the history of hip hop is very anti-establishment, anti-government. So I am literally a government instrument, government issued. So I was in the Marine Corps doing government work, but yet I still have an affinity for hip hop music, which is very like fight the power type of thing. But I felt that I could use hip hop as a tool because hip hop is in my blood, just the culture. It was very similar to the culture I grew up with, you know, single mother, kind of like hustling, making something out of nothing. And and I found the parallels between that and the Marine Corps after I got in the Marine Corps. So I was in the Marine Corps and I was a combat correspondent. So I was always telling stories. I was always a journalist. But after a while, the same stories got boring. We would go on a patrol. We almost got shot at, or we got shot at this time, or nothing happened, or we did humanitarian missions and we patched up the local kids, things like that. It was kind of like mundane, you know, over and over again for a military person. So much action a lot of times becomes the norm, which is kind of crazy to even think about it. When you're a Marine, it just does. So I was trying to find ways to kind of, you know, quell the storm that was brewing inside me and not be like such an angry individual or anything like that, or a mean individual, because a lot of times we had to bring that kind of anger to bad guys, and that's just how it is. That's the reality of it. You know, you have to do that. We have to do aggressive things to bad guys so we can protect our good guys. It's just like a crazy thing. So I was like, how can I have an outlet? What outlet could I use? And then I started to get into hip hop a lot more. And I was just like, wow, I can express myself, you know, on my off time through music and tell these stories and make my life a little bit more interesting through hip hop. So I just practice, but I still wasn't that good. But the thing was that was a turning point was when I actually got out the Marine Corps in 2014. I use my GI Bill, which is a education benefit that every military person or their dependent could take advantage of. Um, and I went to music production school. Like, if you want to learn how to do something, go to school. So I went to music production school. I got my music production degree, and then I was just like, how can I take it another level to be more competitive? Because at the moment in 2014, I realized that it would be very saturated to be a hip hop artist in general because there was a lot of rappers coming out, and I was just like, how can I add an edge to it? I was like, okay, well, the edge that I can put to it is go to entertainment business school and kind of like mirror the career of Puff Daddy, Diddy, and Notorious B.I.G. So I was just like, oh, let me become more of an exec on the behind the scenes thing, coupled with my experience in music production. So I did that, and then I was just like, what makes me unique? I was a Marine. Let me talk about that. Let me talk about that now. Let me put out albums. So I put out 5 albums. um I got featured by Spotify. I got featured by Apple Music. I was on numerous different big media outlets. Recently my company was on CBS. So basically I just realized that there was a crazy polarized type of parallel between the military and hip hop, and I just merged it together. So it was something I was just like, what is opposite that I can put together in my own life that's authentic to me? And that's another thing people have to realize. It has to be real to you. You just can't just make it up. I was like, my life just organically went from Marine Corps to hip hop because it was just two things I liked, and I just looked at what were the commonalities in those two things, and I kind of just like married them up together, and it ended up being something so polarizing that people were interested in. So I can't really explain it. It was just, hey, what's my life and how do I tell it, you know?
And it's interesting how Raymond mentions a few things. One, polarizing. I mean, the Marine rapper, you know what you're getting, and you're not really going to see that many people who fit that kind of description. Raymond's probably the only guy who really, especially markets himself as a Marine rapper. And you also have the point where, you know, listening to Raymond's story, like you see how pieces connected. It's not like he forced a circle into a square hole. Like you could see how the pieces connected. Now, I'm wondering if we go a little bit into detail, because you mentioned the way you were talking about it in the beginning. It's like, you know, I needed an outlet. Rapping was my outlet. Creating those songs, that was my outlet. And you have a lot of other people who are like, this is my outlet or this is my hobby. What really allowed you, and what would you say advice for people who want to turn that switch from this is just my outlet or hobby to this is actually the thing that I am doing and making money from?
Okay, yeah, and that's the difference, because there are people out there who actually I ran into other military individuals who would, you know, make music, but it was just a hobby for them. And for me, it couldn't be a hobby for me because it was like a do or die thing for me, because I honestly don't feel I was the most Rambo type individual on the battlefield. I wasn't. I just paid attention and I was trained very well and I could shoot very well. So I was going to be like no way the enemy is going to take me away. I'm coming home. And at the time I had a daughter, so I was like, I'm coming home. So I treat that type of mentality. I have that same mentality when it comes to my music. I'm like, it's not a hobby for me. I did not survive to come back to do a hobby in hip hop. I survived to actually tell stories. And if I can make money off of it too, that would be cool, because what happens is I become an example for other individuals, and they're like, I don't have to, in my life, I don't have to commit suicide, because veteran suicide is another thing that's a problem in our community. Yeah. I don't have to resort to other means, because the Marine rapper made it happen. He came back from the battlefield and he actually showed us and he built that blueprint for us so we could actually see how to do it. So that's why I feel like it's so important to treat it like a business. But the way I did it was, like I said, I went to school. Then after I went to school, I I I actually reached back and I realized, I said, hey, the military teaches you everything. And like how you said, your grandfather, he was in the Navy, right? Um, he probably, I'm pretty sure he used some of those skills and those tactics that they taught him in the Navy, and he applied it to his everyday life or business or his job. And he's like, oh, wow, the Navy taught me how to clean. The Navy taught me how to be on time. The Navy taught me how to communicate. Like, you know, I sent you an email. I didn't ask you what's your contact information. The Marine Corps and the military taught me actually how to be resourceful. Don't ask Marc, look on his website. It told me exactly what to do. It told me how to contact you. It even told me down to the subject line. So I was like, oh, wow, it's teaching me what to do. So that's all I have to do. So I actually do the same thing. So when it came to getting out and building a career in music, I was like, wow, the military taught me how to organize people. The military taught me how to be resourceful. The military taught me, if you want to know how to do something, go to school for it. So I used the GI Bill. I went to school for being a music individual. Okay, what do I do now? Okay, be resourceful again. Look on the internet. How do I get my name out there? How do I get my music out there? Wow, there's distribution services that are free that I can put my music on. And I did that. And then what do I do now? Oh, the Marine Corps actually has one of the best advertising campaigns ever. What do? You market yourself. The reason why I have a red mohawk is because the Marine Corps has a red stripe, and that has worked very well in their ads. So I was like, oh, wow, I can actually market myself like the Marine Corps did, because they taught me how to do it. Okay. And also another thing to kind of pay attention to if you want to turn your hobby into a business is self-awareness, being self-aware. I know I look like Chris Rock mixed with Mr. T mixed with Apollo Creed. I know that. I'm very aware of that. And because I'm aware of that, I know all I have to do is use those things to market myself so people are familiar with me. And so when I say buy my album, they're like, I want to buy his album because something's familiar and something worked in the past. So because I'm familiar with him, when he says buy my record, I'm going to do it. And that was another thing that I employed. And then also, kind of like Bruce said in your last podcast, it was kind of, it doesn't matter if I'm a subject matter expert. There might be another Marine out there that might be better than me? Possibly could. But does he market himself better than me? No. He could be the subject matter expert, but he just doesn't market himself better than me. And he's not endearing himself to people better than me. And like how Bruce was saying in the last podcast, he's like, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are. It matters how resourceful you are, especially in social media. And so that's another thing. I added all those things that I mentioned before, and then I leveraged those to tell my story the best on social media. And then when I was able to do that, I was able to say, hey, I'm the best story, and you need to invest in this story. And I'm the only person who can tell the story of military people through music the best. And then when I did that, people started to endear in that, and they started to buy my albums. And then I also kind of communicated with them, and I just built this big engagement bubble that people couldn't resist. And then time after time they bought my albums, and then I was able to reinvest that and start my own music label and just invest. And then I invested in people, and that's how I did it.
And I mean, Raymond's really embraced the part. And I think that's the thing that you should really be looking at. Like, he has really embraced the type of person he wants to be for other people. And I can't help but thinking of the analogy, burn the boats. Like, you hear that analogy all the time, but Raymond, like, he actually did that. And I do feel like when it comes to burning the boats, there is a tendency for people to look back and, you know, try and rebuild the boats. And Raymond didn't do that, but I'm wondering what advice you have for people who maybe they are in the middle of that commitment phase. Like, maybe they're working on their first song and they're working on putting it on Spotify, and, you know, they're looking back and like, you know, I could just get a job right now. I could just
Yeah.
do this other thing. Like, what's your advice for them?
You have to believe in yourself. In order for you to do anything and to commit, you have to believe in yourself. People don't commit because they don't believe in themselves. And the reason why I know that is because I've been there before. Because I didn't believe in myself, I felt like I had to have, you know, so many other boats or so many other things around me just in case. And I didn't commit to that one boat. I needed to commit to that one boat, but I didn't because I was scared, and I did not want to lose that one or that relationship or whatever it was. And instead say, you know what, this right here, this ship is going to get us to where we need to go. So basically what I did was I said, you know what, I'm great. I'm a legend. I didn't come from, a single mother. I didn't survive 2 combat deployments. I didn't get shot at. I didn't survive IEDs, all this for no reason. Sometimes you have to kind of like peek back at some things that you survived and like, wow, I got through that. I can get through this next situation. And not only can I get through this next situation, I can also do it by myself, and I can create it. One of my sources of inspiration is a movie called Field of Dreams. There's a good quote in there, and it says, if you build it, they will come. So I was like, you know what? Before the Apple iPhone was created, he had to think in his brain. He had to be like, yo, it can be done. I believe in myself. I believe before this podcast could be made, it had to be like, oh, I believe that the Marine rapper is going to show up. I believe that Marc's going to show up. Um, you just have to have that belief within yourself so you can commit. And once you have that full 100 belief in yourself, then you can commit. That's honestly what I do. I like last night, I went to sleep, but before I went to sleep, I said, I will not be late. I will be on time. I believe my body will wake up on time. Literally, it's simple as that. It is simple as that. It's like those little things. And when it starts like that, you start to build up this discipline, and then you start to build up, like a full belief in everything that you do. Like when I do this, I'm gonna kill it. Why am I gonna kill it? Because I built up this belief in all these other areas of my life, and now I can commit to everything, and I don't need all these other boats. This little dinghy or this little Mickey Mouse boat is gonna get us to where we need to go. So, and all in all, it's just that belief in yourself. I know it sounds simple, but that's what it is for me.
Yeah, and sometimes simple works best. And just to call something as it is, some people are more fortunate than others, but we all have that. I got through this, I got through that, I got through the other thing. And, that's going to be different all across the board. But we can all say, like, look at what we've already done. Too many people,
Yeah.
they just look at the thing that they haven't done and they're like, oh, like, that would be like Raymond being like, this Marine rapper thing is like too hard, but like, and forgetting that he went through the Marine Corps and all of the challenges with that. And I feel like that's what a lot of people do. They just forget about the stuff they've been through. And that is something where, if you're in a spot where you feel like you are stuck, go back to those things that you've done. Like, write that list, do what you got to do. And now Raymond's able to, perform live. He's got his music getting featured on Spotify and Apple. I'm wondering, how did you get to the live events? Because I feel like a lot of people, maybe not with the coronavirus, but a lot of people do want to, get out, and whether it's you're actually a rapper and you want to get on stages, or you're a public speaker, like, how did that transition happen?
Okay, the transition from just at home recording artist to live musician began when I just wanted to spread my wings. I was like, okay, cool. What haven't I done yet? And then also, what are my fans saying? What did they want? That's how it comes full circle and bringing that engagement in. That's how I grew my audience. I go, okay, well, what are people asking for? What are people saying in the comments? They're like, oh, it'd be great if you came out to LA and you did a show. And I was like, oh, really? You guys want to see me live now? And they're like, yeah. I was just like, oh, okay. So I did my research and I kind of like reverse engineered it. I'm like, okay, what do people do when they want to get shows? And, I connected with live venues and promoters and things like that. And then literally you just make it happen like that. You find out how somebody else did it, and then you look at a venue that's close to you. You go, okay, there's this venue in LA. All right, cool. And then you look in, the notes or the credits, and you're like, oh wow, this promoter put it on. Okay, well, all I have to do is contact that promoter. It's easy. A lot of people make things way more difficult than it needs to be. Like, they put the information out there. They say this show happened, this person put it on, and it was sponsored by these people. So somebody in that chain is going to know how to do that. So you just need to contact those individuals. And another thing too, guys, if you're out there, don't be so like full of yourself. Be humble. Be like, listen, I don't know everything. Sometimes you might go into a situation, there's nobody who knows everything. It doesn't matter how smart you are. You can take like Stephen Hawking or somebody. They're like, oh, okay, what's this program? Okay, and then they'll study it and then they'll know it. So when it came down to doing a live show, I was like, okay, people are asking for it on my social media because I started to garner a lot of fans there. Okay, I'm in LA. Okay, where do I go? Who's putting it on? How do I do it? Okay, in LA, where I was at the time, they're just like, okay, we can put you on this show slot. All you need to do is sell these many tickets. I said, okay, cool. I had these tickets in hand. I knew my social media was popping. So all I had to do was go back to my social media. Hey, I have these tickets, guys. Want to come out to my show? They're like, of course. We asked you for it. It's that simple. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Sold those tickets. If you can't sell it person to person, you go, okay, you set up a link, whether, it's a personal website or, uh, uh, some type of ticket website. And then I say, okay, it's going to be $20. It goes to your bank account. You use that money, and then you set up your show, and then you pay for other incidentals or resources or whatever. You show up to the show. Before that, make sure you practice because people want to see you sound like how you sounded on that album. And then that's pretty much it. And then also, after you're done practicing and performing and doing all that, you meet with the different fans and you engage and you shake their hand, be like, hey, thank you so much for coming through, and just be yourself. That's what people want to see. And then what happens is people come back and they want to see another show. And a lot of musicians out there, the downfall of them is they don't treat their musicianship, they don't treat their record label, they don't treat their brand as an artist as a business. And that is something that I noticed that I needed to do, is I treated everything like a business. So it doesn't matter if I'm doing social media, I'm going to engage. It doesn't matter if I'm doing live shows. I'm going to engage, and I'm going to treat it like a business. I'm going to be like, thank you, come again. I appreciate your business. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. You don't say thank you for your business, but you go, hey, thank you for coming out, bro. Thank you for coming out, sis. I love you. Thank you so much for relating to the message of the military and the Marines or the Air Force, because there's other military type musicians. And then you move on, and then you do it over again, rinse, wash, repeat, and then move to another level. But the way that you get to a live show is you just do it. Like, it's not that complicated. You just have to do it and do your research. And especially if you're in the military, you should already know how to do it. Just think of, what skill did they teach me that will help me get through this mission here of being a live show artist.
I love that focus, and just I do feel like people make it way too hard. I mean, with a podcast, like, just reach out to people, interview them. That's really as simple as it is. Like, for me with Breakthrough Success, I tell the story sometimes where I started the podcast by reaching out to 5 people I wanted to interview, having no idea how to do a podcast. But when I got that first yes, I had to learn very quickly. And when you go through something like that, it's like, oh, this isn't complicated at all, partly because you are under the clock to make something happen. So now there's less time to let me weigh all my options, and like more of, I have to get clear on this one thing that's going to work. So I do agree. I feel like people make it way too hard for themselves sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
So for people who want to learn more about the Marine rapper, Raymond Lott, where do we go?
So if you want to learn more about the Marine rapper, see, I made everything simple. It's at the Marine rapper on my social media. On my website is themarinerapper.com, and that's something that you guys should do, is kind of like simplify all your handles. And my podcast is The Military Musician, very clean and simple. And that's pretty much it. I like to make it clean and simple. In the military, we're taught KISS. I don't know if you've heard this thing, but it's called Keep It Simple, Stupid. So if you remember the KISS method, you're going to go far, because people don't want to have to remember things, and people forget. We're all human and stuff like that. And sometimes we may not have technology, and we might be like, man, how do I contact Mark? Oh, man, he said, oh, okay, Mark. You know what I mean? Or whatever it may be, So just keep everything simple, guys. And it's at themarinerapper.com, or at the Marine Rapper. And you guys could contact me, and I'm approachable. I'm just a regular dude that was in the Marines and ended up getting into hip hop music, and now I have my own record label. And thank you so thank you so much, Mark, for having me on, and I appreciate it. And I know on behalf of a lot of other military veterans, we appreciate you for actually allowing me to get on your show to carry on the legacy of other military individuals. And I know your grandfather in the Navy is proud.
Thank you, Raymond. We will end on that. Links in the show notes. It was such a pleasure having you on the show.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you so much.